The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, midweek editions here at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and we are excited to welcome in Justice as he is training. We are not going to speak ill nor talk back to Justice. He's 7'2", and he's a big dude. It's good to have him in studio. Can see him in the backdrop behind Elijah's glorious mustache. 489-1240. 489-1240 to get in on Hail Varsity Radio along the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Can find us on YouTube. Stream the show, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Mike Babcock's already in the green room. He is fired up to talk Nebraska-Illinois 400th sellout and big-time implications for Nebraska. We'll hear from Matt Rule. We'll dive in and spend some time with one of the best college football broadcasters there is. Still killing it. And Tim Brando with us at 5:05. And then Evan Bland also joins the show in hour two. Dr. Brandon Seifert, Nebraska orthopedic. We'll get a fantasy injury update on Cooper Kupp. Get Mr. Miyagi ready. We'll do our shout-outs shortly here in the stream. Our starting five. We'll call out our first five in the stream and others that have made their way in. 489-1240 or find us on email as well. Chris at hailvarsity.com. Can follow Elijah at Herbal Essence at Schmidt_radio. And get all that handled. So, big night. Husker volleyball v. Stanford. That is going to be just a Titan clash at the Devaney. And we'll spend more time on Nebraska-Illinois. Did you see the tweet that Nathan Mader sent us? He tagged me. He tagged you, Elijah.
He DM'd me.
Well, that's impressive.
He made sure I got it.
Well, but he went public to me, so I'm not going to stand in the back of the line here, but pork belly cinnamon rolls was the delicacy he shared with us. We were talking about smoking and college football and smoking in the rain because it's going to be a Saturday of college football for many of us that doesn't involve Nebraska because of the Friday night lights. So this sounds flat out incredible, where he had the old silver pan. He had the cinnamon rolls, and then pork bellies is just, it's thickened bacon. I mean, it's so good. I mean, bacon's incredible. Pork bellies are their own league, right? You've got your rushing champ in the AFC. You've got your rushing champ in the NFC. And then you have your league-wide rushing champ. Yeah. If you're the top rusher out of both leagues, you're going to Hawaii.
And that's what you're referring to these.
That's how good they look.
Well, they look beautiful. And I looked up some recipes online. Nathan, I want to get the ins and outs of his recipe. I'm waiting to hear back on just how he does it.
It's tailgate food for the soul.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like it's essentially you butterfly open your pork belly. And on the inside, you treat it like a cinnamon roll. You're putting your cinnamon, you're putting your brown sugar in there, you roll it all up.
Sure.
Then you put your classic barbecue rub on top.
Yeah, you could do that.
Smoke it up.
Yep.
And then you have your cinnamon-esque glaze. I'm going to use the maple syrup bourbon, obviously.
Right. You have your smuggled, highly illegal Canadian pure maple syrup.
Yeah, and what it turns into is essentially this meat candy roll.
Right. It's a glaze.
Yeah. No, I that is already elevated to the top of my list. By the way, Schmitty, I've made the executive decision. My house on Saturday. You're invited.
Okay.
My buddy, Jacob in the stream, bringing beers.
Okay, Jacob, appreciate it.
I'm bringing the meats. You can bring, I'm not sure what you can bring, but you can bring something.
There may be a golf outing for me, but then we'll
see what the rain looks like.
Yes, I pray that there's no rain for golf and smokage.
And what's nice is the 11 a.m. slate isn't great on Saturday. It's just fine. The real games start at 2:30, so you have
Tennessee, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
When's Michigan SC play? Is that night?
2:30.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in the evening you have the Big Ten slate that we talked about, which I will be probably rotating through. You have Northwestern taking on Washington. I'm interested in that one. You have Oregon State taking on...
Michigan? No, it's not Michigan State.
No, Michigan State's taking on Boston College.
Yes, that'll be great.
Who does Oregon State have? They have somebody decent, too.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up.
I knew it yesterday.
489-1240 to dial up. But no, going to be a big night. There's Makuza news.
Mazuka.
I said Makuza. See, the guy misses a week, and I screw it up.
The bazooka.
Mazuka, the bazooka.
There it is.
Mazuka. What Matt Rule say about Mazuka? Was asked about it today. Let's hear from Coach Rule.
Mazuka will be dressed and ready. He just won't. He won't start. He won't. He'll be out there. Yeah, Lutovsky will play, and Michael would be available. I probably said that in the wrong way. He's dealing with some things right now. So, like I said, but he's making some real progress. So, practice good today. So, he'll be there. And if we need him, we'll go to him. But like a lot of our guys, some guys are dealing with a foot, some guys are dealing with a toe, some guys are dealing with things. Everyone's dealing with different things. So we just are at our best, trying to do our best to be there for everyone where they need us. But he's available.
Okay. That is good news because Henry Lutovsky did a nice job and is beyond serviceable. So we're not just patting big old Henry on the head here. Came in, he's done the right things. He's only dealt with injury, and he's battled back. He's been in the program for a long time. You want guys to thrive who've put the old punch card in and kept on working. That said, to have the option of Mazuka to play, just from an attitude standpoint and a kind of an A-kicker type mentality, that is worth its weight in gold in a game like Friday night where it is going to be bare knuckle. So that's good news. This kind of materialized quickly and good for whatever Mazuka's working through, for him to be on the field and working his way up and being able to suit up. I didn't get that feel as of Monday.
No, I didn't either. And the feel that I have now is like Micah's done what we want to get him re-ingrained back within the team. Now he has to re-earn a starting role. And that's more than just what happens on the field. You have to re-earn the trust of your teammates, your position coaches, your head coach. There's a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt between Mazuka and everyone within that Husker football team. So it strikes me as a guy that's done what he needs to do to get back on the field from a practice point of view, but there's more that needs to be done in order to get back into the field in a starting capacity. And as much as talent is important, and Mazuka's talent is undeniable, he is a road grading right guard, the type of right guard that makes you think back to some of the Husker lines of old. There's more to being a teammate and being a member of a team than just how well do you play football. There's a culture element of things that you
don't want to undo what you've built up over a season and a half. You can't do that. But Matt Rule and the guys on the Unity Council and the veteran voices of this football team, they're the ones that are, quite frankly, going to be okaying him even seeing time on the field. Mazuka's first and foremost A, B, C, and D, those steps he'll take. But the teammates got to okay it that you're back, okay? And then the coaches, once the team's satisfied, then you move forward. I think that's kind of the vibe I get from this football team.
Well, I think there's also the element here of you're not going to punish Henry Lutovsky because he's a guy that's done everything the right way on and off the field, and he came in and he was serviceable last week. I think what has happened is he's gone and earned himself that starting role because of the combination of the on the field and the off the field. Everything he's done has been right. And I don't think you punish him by saying, you know what, Mazuka's back, he gets his starting job right back, because it's more than just on the field. And Lutovsky's a guy that, by all accounts, does it right on the field, does it right off the field, and has earned himself a spot on that starting line based on the totality of everything that he's done within the program. You're not going to demote him back down to second string just because, Mazuka's back and we love what he provides us on the field. It's that culture element of, you know what, we have a guy in Lutovsky that's done everything the right way. He's earned himself a starting role, and Mazuka doesn't get to jump that back in line.
Don't cut in line.
Talent. Exactly.
No cuts, right? Good old junior high. Can't cut, dude. Get in the back. So with this, the good news is you have two right guards again. If you're Nebraska with lots of experience, The other thing, too, is you want to keep that starting job. Go out and kill it if you're Henry. And that's quite a possibility. Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs. Uncle Jimmy is in first. The other Dave checks in. Jim is in. He says, afternoon, fellas. Jacob says hello. Mr. Snitley is in. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, says 2 sleeps till game day. This week is throwing me off. Yeah, no kidding. I don't know if it's Thursday or Tuesday. That said, it says the bazooka must have gotten back in the good graces. Possibly. NASCAR Eric is here. Brian, as you may be watching in the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube or Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, Brian says Mazuka must have sufficiently waxed Coach's car. That's funny. NASCAR Eric is in, says, what's up? He says, on the way to Lincoln tomorrow. NASCAR Eric, you got to come by the Single Barrel either tomorrow or Friday, bud. Say hello if it can work in your plans. 4 to 6 both days. 9th and P at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Uncle Larry is here. Brent is in. Tuck checks in. So is there going to be a Saturday show? Tuck asks. And what's the plan for Friday? Well, Friday is this. I told you 4 to 6 at the Single Barrel. Real Red Reaction follows immediately following Nebraska and Illinois. And then we'll be up and at 'em 7:45-ish Saturday morning for the weekend edition.
Can't wait. And,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be earlier than that for me because I got to get stuff on the smoker before the show starts. So it's going to be an early start.
So do you want to try a 7:30?
No.
No.
What are you talking about? No.
Babbers is going to put his time hack in and saying, you clowns are going to show up at 8:04.
Nah.
No, we'll be up before that.
We'll see if the reaction show goes long enough. It just might be an all-night affair for me, getting stuff on the smoker and then showing up for Saturday morning. I got to get a rewatch in before that Saturday show.
If you're a Nebraska fan, you want the reaction show to go long because you're filled with joy having a first ranked win since 2011.
Things go right, we might just carry that reaction show through into the Saturday morning show.
Just pull a
all-nighter.
Telethon. Sure. So Sal is in from Omaha, says, I'm loving all the attention on the Big Red they're getting from national media. The monster's been awakened. Well, it's feeling that way for many, with not only being ranked, but a ranked matchup. The fact, and we'll hear from Matt Rule with his sit-down with Rich Eisen here in a little bit. All that being said, when I look at, there's a couple of questions I have as we go into Illinois for Nebraska. I'll dive further into that in a moment. But when I look at what Saturday, check that, Friday, again, trained, what it represents for me with Nebraska is just this opportunity. And I hate to sound like a coach or a teacher, and I wish I was smart enough to sound like a teacher more times than not, but you get an opportunity for Nebraska to continue reinforcing that they're just not flavor of the month or they're a sexy early team a la Colorado. You can keep putting proof out there on game days with a ranked win. Your schedule looks, quite frankly, Nebraska's got a chance that they keep handling business to have probably a top 3 resume, all right, going into Ohio State before the first college football playoff rankings are released. Because you're going to maybe have a ranked opportunity against Rutgers at home. You're going to have another Big Ten road opponent. All right, comparative score. What do you do on the road to Purdue compared to Notre Dame? And then Indiana should be 5-0 when you go visit Bobby Knightville. All right? All of that's there even before Columbus. So Nebraska, listen, expectations have been laid out by Rule and this team. Their expectations are super high. They have a roadmap in hand with what they want to do this season. But I think the fans' expectations have gone from, all right, bowl to beyond that.
Well, and part of me is sitting here saying this is the real show-me game for Husker fans, and really even the national media. And we thought coming into the year it's going to be that Colorado game. Well, Colorado has been a bit of a mess, which we probably should have seen coming.
Not
Some
your,
people did
not
see
your
coming.
fault, but what they may be.
But how much did that show national folks about how good Nebraska is this year? Well, it showed national folks that, Nebraska is better than they were last year. Doesn't really give you a sense of what their ceiling is going to be this year.
You're still wondering.
The Illinois game, it's the first game of the Big Ten slate. It's that chance to show the Big Ten folks, the national media, even Husker fans that, Nebraska can be a player in the Big Ten this year. Maybe not one of the best teams, but you have Joel Klatt earlier today. He's got Nebraska tiered with Michigan and Penn State. Those are the teams he has in the same level of Nebraska in his tiers list right now. This game on Friday is the chance to show that, this isn't just projection. This isn't just the hype that puts Nebraska there. This is real substance. You need to go win the game against Illinois if you want to show that you can be a player this year. That's what this game on Friday night is to me.
And keep coming back for more each week. But yeah, it's all about substance. We'll get Mike Babcock's thoughts as well. Black Hills Brennan is in. Roddy is here. Colin checks in, as does Jim. And Anonymous says, I like our chances a lot better if we don't return a punt for a safety again. Yeah, we were there for that one. Jack is here. Jeff is in. Horny Husker, I'll be. That's a new listener. Listening live. He or she likes Elijah's voice. It's wonderful. Mudflaps, good to have you in. Mike Babcock's on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, as we are excited to bring in Mr. Husker football, Mike Babcock with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. Get Mike's bi-weekly newsletter, MikeB at HurrdatSports.com. Fire off an email and get some goodness sent back to you. Babbers, the 400th consecutive sellout. We've been asking our guests this week their first Husker game. What was your first Husker game as a fan? What was your first Husker game as a dude covering the team?
First Husker game as a fan, I don't remember very well. 1956, Kansas State.
Okay.
Which was a loss.
So pre-sellout, though.
Was it?
It's a pre-sellout streak.
Yeah, pre-sellout. The one that I remember a little better is 1958 Iowa State game, because Iowa State had a team called the Dirty 30. And their star player was Dwight Nichols. They ran out of a single wing kind of a thing. And Nebraska won that game 7-6. Nebraska team with Pat Fisher, Leroy Zenick, Harry Tolley, Dick McCashlin, or whatever. The first game that I covered as a newspaper reporter was the Alabama game in 1978, the opener in Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
I probably told you this story, but I started a month before that first game. I started at the newspaper. It was my dream job. 2 weeks before the game, Nebraska had a scrimmage in the stadium, and Coach Osborne took the team up after the scrimmage, and he told the defense, if you play defense like this, Alabama will be lucky to score more than a touchdown against you guys. So I quoted that in the newspaper, and Nebraska lost that game like 20-6. And the next Monday, I had to cover the Extra Point Club luncheon, and you went through the sequence of speakers. I think Coach Osborne spoke. Grad assistant gave a scouting report on the upcoming opponent. And then one of the assistant coaches would show film, and George Darlington was the one that showed film that day. And he said, I'm not going to start showing this film until a certain sports writer leaves, because he cost us the Alabama game. And he looked at me, and everybody kind of looked at me, and I had to get this filed for the Journal-Star, the afternoon edition, so I couldn't very well leave. Seemed like an eternity, but he finally said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and show this film and comment on it as long as this certain sports writer doesn't quote anything I say. So I thought a month into my dream job, I was probably done, because I had accomplished something that Kansas State, Oklahoma State never did, which was beat an Osborne team. 255, 49, and 3. One of those was my responsibility. And Coach Osborne, the next Monday, he said that when we were waiting to do the interviews, he said, when you get done with your interviews, he said, I want to talk to you. So I thought that was going to be the message that I was headed back to teaching. And he said, we have a rule here that you can watch scrimmages and practice. And he said, you can't quote anything I say, and you can't write about anything that you see. You can ask me questions about it, and I'll answer those questions. But that's all it is. You're new on the job. You didn't understand it. That's all he said. So I thought that was really great. Then Lance Van Sant the next day, crusty old defensive coordinator, said, I want to see you in my office when you're done.
So you're getting to meet everybody, Mike.
Yeah. So I go up to his office, and he says, Shh. Dave Gillespie stuck his head in, and he said, shut the door, Gillespie. Sit down. And I thought I was going to get it from the defensive coordinator, and he said, you're new on the job. As long as you do what you think is right, you'll be a successful journalist.
Okay.
And that's all he said.
You're waiting for the rubber hose.
Coach Osborne and Coach Van Zandt both were very, I thought I had tremendous respect for both those guys.
That shocks me that George was throwing elbows.
George and I
love George
as years passed, but I always look back at that and think, 49 losses in his 25-year career, and I was 1 month on the job, and I did something that Kansas State and Oklahoma State couldn't do.
Well, I'll say this: didn't Bama pull off a goal line stand in '78 Sugar Bowl to win the national title that year?
Bama was really good. I mean, that was a great Alabama team, no question about that. E.J. Jr. was a tremendous defensive player, and Tom Sorley basically wore him like a jersey that game.
Yeah.
I mean, he was all over Sorley. They could not stop him.
Well, those were, we talk about non-conference games going by the wayside, but, I mean, some of those non-cons with Penn State and Auburn and Bama, and, it was awesome. And then you got to take on some of the Big Eights. Who was up? Was Missouri good? Was Okie State good? Was Colorado good? But you knew Oklahoma was going to be, which brings us to this Friday, Mike. And, the West is no more, but it'd be pretty cool if there was still one more year of the Big Ten West, because Nebraska would be looking pretty good. So would Illinois right now as things sit. Elijah and I were talking about this. Do you attach what type of meaning do you attach to Friday with Nebraska-Illinois? Is it just the next game, or do you think this is a little bit reinforcement of all the nice things people feel and have said about Nebraska?
Well, from a team standpoint and Coach Rule, I mean, they're as aggressive for this game as they will be for the next game, or whatever. And we kind of talked about this before the Colorado game. I really thought Colorado was going to be the pivotal game. You were going to find out what to think about Nebraska based on what happened in the Colorado game. Now I've changed my opinion of that, and it's the Illinois game. But it's kind of that one game at a time mentality. It's like next up. Can you get the job done against Illinois? And if you can, then it's next up, can you get the job done on the road at Purdue? Mm-hmm. Next up, that's the approach that the team has. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's kind of a lame excuse for saying that it was Colorado, and now I'm saying it's Illinois. But if Nebraska gets the win against Illinois, I'll probably say it's another one down the line. But I really think that the opener in Big Ten play is important, and Illinois is a ranked team. It's a great matchup on a Friday night, which I'm not big on Friday night games because I think that's high school stuff. But it's going to be quite the matchup, I think.
Mike, what's your reaction to the fact that this is the first ranked game at Memorial Stadium that we've had in over a decade? That's the stat that's floating around this week. Doesn't that seem borderline unbelievable?
Well, the expectation certainly for Nebraska has been, now this season, we haven't had it. I think I would not have guessed that it would be that long before two ranked teams would play at Memorial Stadium. Certainly Nebraska would have a ranking and get into that situation. But, I think it's surprising that it's taken that long. But here's reason for optimism. Here's reason for the fans to step up now because Nebraska is ranked, and here comes a ranked opponent into Memorial Stadium. It's what used to be fairly typical a couple of times each season, and just we haven't seen that.
Mike, why does Nebraska win Friday?
I think we've seen that Dylan Raiola's ability to manage a game has been above a freshman's level. I think that's where it starts. I think that you have seen, you've got more than one running back that you can count on. Now down the line, it sounds like they're still looking to maybe go to a particular back for, what did he say, 20 carries, another one for 15 or whatever. It's probably Dowdell and possibly Ramir Johnson. But, I thought Emmett Johnson did a pretty good job with his 4 carries against in Saturday's game. And I think that's one of the things. You got the running back situation. We're seeing receivers step up. You feel good about that. And you guys already talked about the offensive line. Mazuka is going to be available. Lutovsky did a good job stepping in there at that starting position. I just think that we saw some good things against Colorado. We saw some good things against Northern Iowa and, going back to UTEP. So I think they've gotten better each week.
Mike, to flip this question around, where do you worry? Where do you think it could all go wrong for Nebraska on Friday night if it unravels?
If it unravels. Well, I think the turnover thing still, I want to make sure that they maintain an advantage in turnovers. I think that's important. I think that you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself because of what happened last year and now what your expectations are for this season and what you've done so far. I think that's the one area. Take care of the ball in any way, shape, or form. That's the key for me.
Mike Babcock's with us from Hail Varsity, Hurrdat Sports, at MD Babs on Twitter. Mike, as we wind down, what's coming up from you in the newsletter, bud?
Just some thoughts on the 400 sellout and, some things that were said during the news conferences this week. That's typically what the Thursday one would be. So no great, unique imagination in changing the process of what I do.
No worries, man. It's all good. It's the next one up, 400th sellout, 2 ranked squads, Saturday night under the lights in Nebraska-Illinois. It'll be big time, and can't wait to see what Nebraska and Illinois bring again for the Big Red on a national stage. Mike, we'll check in with you a little bit later on this week. We'll see you Friday, bud.
Yeah, sounds good. I thought you'd have Justice say something, then I'd agree with him, and I'd sound like I was smarter. So,
Justice, he'll hop in at some point.
Okay. Well, I agree with him. So.
Okay. You agree with Justice. Just feed him the ball in the post. Do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Babbers. All right. Mike Babcock with us from Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice sitting in as well today. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play to get caught up on the podcast. Brian checks in, says Nebraska is here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and they're all out of bubble gum. Love it. GBR Jeremy is in. Rule the day. Says, let's go 4-0. Brett is in, reporting for duty. Pleasure being in the same chat as Dr. Juergens. And I think Jacob is planning on a million beers on Saturday.
I believe the term was a zillion.
A zillion.
Yeah.
All right. A zillion, a million. He's chasing that 0.3. Ken is here. Odds on rain Friday. I think that it's the only way Illinois could win. Funky turnovers. Eric is here. Eric, good to have you in. Scott checks in.
And quickly here, as we talk about weather, Roger had a good call in. The call was dropped. So, Roger, if you're listening, give us a call back when we get you on the air. He was talking about some weather games at Memorial Stadium, so we want to get him on the air here. Call us back, Roger. Your call was dropped. That may have been my bad.
Okay. So, let's talk real quick about the questions you have for Friday. We'll hear more from Matt Rule. We'll sneak that in shortly. Tim Brando calling the ball game here in about 25 minutes. Two things that I'm interested in here with kind of the show me game on Friday for Nebraska. It's been a nice progression. You get Colorado now. You get a ranked squad at home on a Friday. You're not going to be overwhelmed by the stage. You've already practiced and participated in that. 6.3 million tuned in to see you against Colorado. But can Nebraska run the football Friday night when they want to? Rain or no? Can they run the football when they want to, when they need to? Two, Illinois has been in a tight ball game. They were +3 against Kansas in that turnover battle. And how does Nebraska handle that tight ball game stress? Haven't seen that this year. Those are the two questions I have. I think Mitch was right. Mitch Sherman nailed it with you. This can be a Dowdell game, an Emmett game. You mix in some Ramir, however you want to go 1-2 punch. You need Dowdell to hang out of the football. Duh. But if it does get tight, if it's fourth quarter, if it's 8 minutes left, if it's 6 minutes left, tie ball game, do you get that stop defensively? Do you get that drive on offense? Do you make a kick? Do you score a touchdown? That's really the one wart you still have to burn off if you're Nebraska.
It's that question of the mentality. Like, what happens in this football game? I'm still concerned about the weather. If it's a rainy football game and somebody fumbles on their own half of the field, and now we have a momentum-changing type play where a 10-0 game becomes 10-7 because you fumbled, does Nebraska have what it takes between the ears to be able to come back from that and to continue playing their best football?
If you're trying to call, hang on there. We'll get you put on hold, 489-1240. Roger, thanks for hanging tight. Go for it.
Maybe.
Is the phone system being a nightmare again?
It kind of is.
Okay.
Well, let's try one thing here. Does Roger have us now?
Roger, do you have us? This is sweet.
Well, let's try this. Oh, I wonder if the call dropped again and that was Roger calling us.
Roger for the third time.
I got you.
All right. Yay. All right.
Hey. I got on. Hey, listen. What I brought up was I can remember days. I've had tickets in the late 60s. Anyway, we sat in that brand new north end zone with a hole that comes down right onto your legs in a Colorado game that it was so cold, so snowy, you couldn't see the other end zone. How many people actually stayed to all them games? Gosh, there were some cold days.
Yeah, a lot of those were the Oklahoma Thanksgiving extravaganza where you had to thaw your feet, but it was okay to do so because maybe you beat Barry. But, I mean, there's so many fans, man, so many years, so many families that make the trek, loved it, experienced it, memories of lifetimes. And, it's going to be incredible Friday night. But that's what's special to so many Nebraskans.
Yeah, and that, like I say, sometimes when us guys get to talking about our old days of going to the games, we always thought of the bad weather days. Why, I don't know, but there was times we just settled up and stayed.
Well, it's a badge of honor. You stuck it out.
Yes, we usually did. We usually try to stick it out on the north end zone bunch, yeah.
I like it. Roger, appreciate it. Love hearing about the north end zone. That was great. 489-1240. Speaking of bad weather,
coldest game I've ever been to. I just want to lay it out. Not many people got to go to this one. Michigan State 2020 during the COVID year. I was there running the cameras for Husker.
Oh, you
Vision.
were? Okay.
That was brutal. That was one of the worst.
Was this
games.
a snow game?
Yes.
So it was 18 or was it COVID?
2020. The 9-6 field goal game?
Yeah, it was.
No.
It was 18.
No, which game? There was a game it was December of 2020. I can tell you that much.
Yeah? Probably Minnesota, wasn't it?
That could be right.
Yeah, when Minnesota came up here with not even a bus full of people to go win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was like negative 10 degrees before kickoff. When we were setting up the cameras at 6 in the morning, it was awful.
It's a happy Elijah.
The Michigan State 2018 game was not far behind. That one was also brutal.
Yeah, that was snow-filled. But those are my questions. Can you run it when you have to, when you want to, and can you handle the stress in a tight ball game? It was all about confidence and going out there and knowing you could do things to Colorado. Nebraska lived that. I think it's been talked about. I would believe it's been broached that, hey, it's going to be a tight, tough ball game. So, I don't think Nebraska's worried about being out physical. They've got guys that were part of last year that went in there and duked it out with Illinois. They got that win. So there's that. It's a new year, different team, all that good stuff. But I don't think Nebraska is in the business of backing down this year. All that being said, you could trade punches with somebody, and do you believe you're going to come out on the other end?
Well, I think they from what you hear from the outside looking in, they feel confident in the quarterback that they have that can lead them to the end. Mm-hmm. And that goes a long way. We talked about that, previously with the guy in Jeremiah Searles talking about what does it feel like to have an offensive line that trusts the quarterback behind him. It's similar to like having a running back that you trust as an offensive lineman. It changes the game for you. Just having a guy at the quarterback position that no matter what the score is late in a football game, you say, we trust that guy with the ball in his hands. It does so much for a team psyche.
Our friends at Go Big Redcast says, hey, Schmidt, Elijah, easiest way to address concerns over a close game. Don't let it be a close game early. A la Colorado, absolutely, obviously. But you're going to be in tight games this year. It's just the nature of the Big Ten.
Exactly.
Wisconsin, Iowa, Rutgers, Indiana, maybe. Maybe it's Friday night where you got to come from behind. Can you do that? That's something that I think would serve this football team well.
As I said, it's the show me game for Nebraska here. This is it. This is the show me game. What have you done? What are you going to be this year? I think we'll have a much better idea when we wake up on Saturday morning.
Tim checks in. I think we win as long as Nebraska can run the ball halfway decent. The O-line gives our blocking and gives a lane. Give Dylan some time. There's confidence. Husker fans are all good. So we'll wind down this first hour and check in with Tim Brando next hour. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Winding down hour one, Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. As Justice is learning the ropes, you've got some Husker fans in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter. Ken is all over Nebraska rolling. Says Illinois is overrated. Altmaier throws every ball sidearm. The D-line will eat him alive. The backs are underwhelming. And the receivers aren't better than what we've seen. Nebraska's seen some dudes at wide receiver. Fair point. But I
also think Illinois has got the best ability to protect their quarterback than Nebraska's seen this season.
I think, they might have as good or better O-line than Northern Iowa. You'd pray that's a reality in the Big Ten. I just remember Geronimo making a catch in 2015. Geronimo Allison for Illinois. Yeah. Why recruit him? I mean, he was only at Iowa Western for a couple of years and ended up in Green Bay for a while. But yeah, that was no good. The infamous, I should just fall on the ball and keep killing the clock.
There's been so many foot to nuts type moments for Nebraska-Illinois within the past decade. So many of them. You have that one. You have the fake punt.
Where the fattest kicker in America found his way blindfolded to the first down marker.
More like 40 yards.
I know.
Yeah.
He just waddled away.
You have that one. You have the opening game in 2021.
Thought there was a Hershey snack on the other side of the 50. He just kept on grinding forward.
That one hurt. The opening game in 2021 in Champaign.
At least they sold Dos Equis. And pre-Cornet Lager, of course.
Were you partaking?
No, I wanted to. Walked into the stadium. There's just tubs of ice and glorious Mexican beer. And it's time to go to the press box.
Well, even last year was just a painful game to watch all around. That was the game where you got done and you went, at least it was a win, but I feel like I just wasted 2.5 hours of my day watching
20-7, and then you had the turnover fest in the second half.
It was garbage.
But it was good. I mean, that was a surprise. Wow, we're up there at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill going, how'd this happen? Every Friday road game Nebraska plays. Thank you, Big Ten. Nebraska wins.
And there's also the game we talked about yesterday, the 45-42. Where everyone thought Nebraska could be pretty good that year, and nobody thought Illinois would be that great that year, and you're watching that entire game, and you're just
murdered every wide receiver Nebraska had. Yeah. So I want to tell you about what's going on in Omaha with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, the one-on-one mentoring relationship that can unlock full potential, and it's time for you to become a big brother, big sister, or big couple. Log on today, mentoromaha.org. Big Brothers and Big Sisters on a mission. 60 men, 60 days. October 30th, the deadline. They're calling on all men and women in the metro area, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, to step up, become a big brother to as many youths waiting for a mentor. And there are several youths that are needing and wanting a mentor. They've been on a waiting list. Help out, reach out, and again, mentor. And the bigs and the littles are matched up. The match support specialist is incredible with mentoromaha.org. Log on today. The littles meet twice a month with the bigs. Activities like ice cream, ball games, video games, just fun and mentorship. Log on today, mentoromaha.org. 60 men, 60 days. Do it by October 30th.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice sitting in today as well. Big weekend of college football. Nebraska and Illinois ranked Friday night. We're efforting Tim Brando, USC, Michigan, Tennessee, Oklahoma. Getting ready to rock and roll this weekend as well. And Matt Rule had a chance to sit down and spend some time with Rich Eisen. As Eisen, national guy, and Coach Rule's really good, man, about getting in front of podcasts, national radio, go through the list, and it's pretty important. Elijah, I need you to take over because I'm getting a call on my cell phone.
That I can do. Should we listen to some of Matt Rule on that?
Let's hear a little bit from Matt Rule, as Rule is able to sit down with Rich Eisen, and they talked quarterback. The big question was Dylan Raiola.
Well, I think the biggest thing is when you talk to him, I mean, he's immensely talented with no ego. He has a lot of pride, but no ego. He's going to, and so you could feel that right off the bat, and you just kind of gravitate towards him. And, when you have a guy like him on our team that, everyone respects him, yet he's getting a lot of accolades, but he always keeps it about the team. Like that's a secret sauce. Like when you have your best players. And so, when your best players are team guys, man, you have a great chance to have a great team. And I recognized that pretty early in recruiting, and we were happy when he came here.
So that is Matt Rule on Dylan Raiola. The question is, and Rich Eisen was, one of many topics they hit on, but Rich dove in and asked, the big C word, Columbus, right? Bigger and better. We'll be joined by Tim Brando here in just a moment with Fox, as he'll be on the call for sellout number 400 for Nebraska. Excited to spend some time here with Tim Brando in a moment as we welcome in maybe Tim Brando with us. Elijah, we got him?
I thought we did, but now we're getting a dial tone, so give me a second on that.
Tim, do we have you? All right, Tim Brando with us here, Fox Sports. He'll be on the call for sellout number 400 at Memorial Stadium. Tim, it's a pleasure to talk some college football with you. Thanks for the time. And what do you think? Nebraska-Illinois under the lights.
Well, I think I'm in my car with my driver's taking me from Omaha International to Lincoln as we speak. I'm about 30 minutes out, and I'm getting excited with each mile we pass. Okay? So many great memories of coming to Omaha for College World Series for years, and of course doing some Nebraska games going back to the 80s. And the last time we were in here for a game, it was Spencer and myself. That was a ill-fated game against Northern Illinois that didn't go well, and the time before that was Frosty's first game, and you remember what happened with the weather after the kickoff in that game. So we're hoping things go better for Matt Rule with me coming to town than they did the last couple of times we made our way in. But Devin Gardner and I have started this Friday night package, or I say that, Fox started this Friday night package of games, and I switched partners after 25 years with Spence, and I'm working with young Devin Gardner, who's a terrific young broadcaster that quarterbacked at Michigan back as 2013, I think was his last year. So he is psyched to be in Lincoln for the first time for a game to call, and I am too. It's you don't come to this place without getting pumped up, and I think now after the program has gone through so much turmoil in the last 15 or so years, it looks like Matt really does have it going now, and I think that the fans understandably are a lot more confident. And this game with Illinois is going to be difficult, though, because they're good too, and they're riding high with some confidence after beating Kansas the way they did to open and following up last week. So it's going to be a lot of fun, Schmidt. It is.
Tim, paint the picture for us as you drive down I-80 here. One of the things you hear from recruits all the time is you're driving through cornfields and then, boom, there it is, one of the cathedrals of college football with Memorial Stadium there on the left. It's sellout number 400 for Memorial Stadium. Paint the picture. I know you're not into Lincoln yet, but what is that like, an outsider's perspective, driving through the cornfields and then seeing that cathedral?
Well, for me, and, I never played, but I broadcasted, and I gave up playing football to broadcast it when I was in the 9th grade. I knew that I wanted to be a broadcaster.
And there is the glorious. Okay, we have you back. Good.
I'm excited, and I think that when you come into Nebraska and you make that drive and you're in this environment, you recognize what it means, and then understanding the history. And I grew up on those wonderful teams that Devaney had, and I was watching Jerry Taggy, Johnny Rogers, and Jeff Kinney and those guys in the game of the century as a teenager, as a young teenager. And it helped form my love of the game of college football. And so just for me, I'm 68 years old now, I get to put my makeup on in Keith Jackson's bathroom that Don Bryant so named, a long-time SID, named for Keith Jackson. So I get chills thinking about that. So if I feel that way, I know the players do. It's a proud tradition reborn. That's what I'm noticing. Matt is a guy that always gets it done in his second year. All you need to do is look what he did at Temple, look what he did at Baylor, and there's a track record here. And look, I thought Scott was a can't miss. I think a lot of other people felt that he was too. It didn't work out, but the proof is in the pudding when you look at the track record of Matt Rule. He knows how to construct winning programs at the collegiate level. And exactly what he's made of is what this program so desperately needed. It needed his infrastructure, his culture, because it doesn't just automatically stay from generation to generation. You can lose it. You can lose it. And a lot of the history of Nebraska football, I think, it became part of the problem. People wanted it to be the way it was, and you still had to have somebody there that could do it now, in the moment, not just because of yesteryear, not just because of what had been done in the past, but what could be done right now. And I think that's what Matt and his program is all about. That's why he won at Temple. That's why he won at Baylor the way he did.
Tim Brando with us, Hall of Fame broadcaster, Fox Sports, Under the Lights Friday, as Nebraska-Illinois 400th sellout. Tim Brando joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Tim, you painted just a great picture of Matt Rule, the why it can happen again. Things are exciting around here. Nebraska's unbeaten for the first time to start off, non-con. That's wonderful for Nebraska fans. What do you think of Dylan Raiola from what film you've been able to see?
I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the Kansas State game that we had last week, but it was a sellout, and, that team was highly thought of, still is. It's a favorite to win the Big 12 along with Utah. And they've got in Avery Johnson, a four-star player that's from the area. His profile reads just like Avery Johnson. Wonder kid from the area, family that is part of the Nebraska culture, dreamed about being a Nebraska quarterback, and has extraordinary arm strength, but presence, is poised in the pocket, and his ability to throw on the run. All those things that I saw last week in Avery Johnson, I see in this kid. And frankly, Schmidt, it's one of the reasons why I think college football, after at least the first 3 weeks, we're going into week 4, and for us it's week 5 because we worked the week 0 game in August. I got to tell you, after we get past the first 3 teams, after we get past Ohio State, Georgia, and I think the teams ranked between 4th and 24th. I don't know where there's a difference, really, because everybody's got talent. Parity is no longer a myth. And when you see these wonderful quarterbacks at places like Kansas State, where, historically they've had junior college guys, Colin Klein was a Heisman finalist, but he was mostly a runner. He wasn't known for his, magnificent arm. He's now running the A&M offense as its coordinator. But this kid, Avery Johnson, is a stud. He's what miss first-round NFL draft pick. I think Raiola could very easily do the same thing. He could. And we're seeing, he's only scratching the surface of the talent, skill, and the leadership skill that he has. So that's why I'm so happy that Friday night we'll have this game, because if this game were played on Saturday, fellas, you'd be up against a lot of competition in terms of the games that are on elsewhere. Most of America will be tuned into this game. I know there's a game on ESPN, but it's not as big as this one. These are 2 top 25 teams that are in the Big Ten in rich locations for households. The state of Illinois, Chicagoland area, plus Nebraska. And, I don't care how bad Nebraska is. If you're doing a Nebraska game, you're guaranteed 2 million people watching you because the brand is that big. Not just in your footprint, but everywhere. People care about Nebraska football. So I think this could be one of those nights where America really gets to know Raiola, and I'm eager to tell that story.
Tim, I've heard plenty of national media folks, even folks around here, say over the past couple of months, college football is just better whenever Nebraska is good. Do you agree with that statement? What does that statement mean to you?
Well, I think it's true with all the traditional programs, the ones that have great brands. When you're talking about a program that dominated and was, a national championship caliber team from the 70s through the 90s, we're talking 3 decades of being relevant. And then they slid off. And it wasn't like they had horrible years. They had a few good ones, but they could never sustain that success. It's true with all of those programs. When Notre Dame suffers, college football suffers. USC, Texas, has gone through how many different iterations of we're back, right? Now, we think they're back now, so it happens everywhere. College football is about history. It's about tradition. That's the currency of the game. Now, that isn't to say that programs that don't have the same brands can't be successful. I just mentioned Kansas State as an example. They don't have the same kind of brand, nor do they get the same kind of attention that a Nebraska does. But that kind of program can still flourish and still do well. They won the Big 12 title 2 years ago. But I think it's marvelous for the game to have Nebraska back. And certainly the Big Ten can't wait. With the teams coming in from the West Coast now, with USC and Oregon, Washington and UCLA coming in, I think for Nebraska to begin to flex its muscles at about this time, this is exactly what the Big Ten was waiting for when Nebraska signed up to come into the league. So it's just going to make everything bigger and better in the Big Ten, with Nebraska being really, really good.
Tim Brando with us, Hail Varsity Radio. At Tim Brando, follow him on Twitter. You'll be watching, if you're not there, on Friday night, Nebraska-Illinois. Tim will get you out on this, and thanks for making and taking time as you land in the great state of Nebraska. This thing could be a tight ball game. That's one question that Nebraska fans have. How does Nebraska handle a tight ball game? It's not gone well the past several.
Well, here's the deal. You're playing a team that wants to do the exact same thing that you want to do. We've been talking a lot about Raiola, but what these teams want to do, Brett Bielema wants to do it, and Matt Rule wants to do it. They want to pound the rock. They want to be able to run the football. And you got three guys you can turn to, and so does Brett. Now, that being said, in both instances, if you have to respect the run, and you have to come up and you have to send some of that perimeter, some of your secondary up to get into those gaps. You got one-on-one coverage, and Altmaier, by the way, is a big-time quarterback too, with a healthy arm. I saw him before he transferred, and being on an Ole Miss roster should tell you something. At the quarterback position, that kid could play too. So I think the game is going to be a quickly played game, I think. And it's going to be one in the trenches first and foremost. So I'm looking for drives, that are like 13, 14, maybe 16 or 17 plays, eat up time. I don't think we're going to see necessarily a pinball wizard game where it's the first one to 40 that wins. I think that 31 points is probably enough to win this game, maybe even 28. Both of these defenses have acquitted themselves well to start the season, too. In a lot of ways, it'll be a little bit of a back-to-the-future game because the incentive to run the ball well is first and foremost with both of these offensive staffs. So that's the thing, Schmidt, that jumps out at me. Old school, new school, so to speak. And again, as I mentioned, it is really cool to be here for another sellout, and particularly the 400th consecutive sellout. So I'm juiced. Can you tell?
I totally can. Welcome back to Nebraska, Tim. Excited to have you on the call for number 400, bud, and hope to bump into you in the press box. Always appreciate your time, sir.
You got it. Always happy to be back here where Big Red's located.
Take care. Tim Brando with us.
Bye-bye.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Tim Brando making his way into Nebraska as he'll be on the call for sellout number 400. On Fox, we welcome in Evan Bland with the Omaha World Herald at Evan Bland OWH on Twitter. Evan, loved your question today about the traits of Nebraska fans. They're going to be geeked up again, bud, for another home ball game, another one under the lights, and number 400. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, I thought Matt Rule's answer was good too about loyalty and the coaches feel that. Like when you come into a place that's sold out since 1962. What a responsibility that is to, make that level of support proud. And, for what it's worth, I was thinking today, like, there's some parallels between number 400 and number 1. And maybe this is better served for a Mike Babcock segment, but back in 1962, they were undefeated after a number of losing seasons, and they built up the excitement from there, and things took off. And, here they are again, 3-0. It's a top 25 matchup on Friday night, and a lot of excitement again. So what a cool night it'll be to celebrate, a streak that's unprecedented, really, in sports.
Evan, one of our questions we've been asking just about everybody this week is, what was the first game, what was the first sellout that you got to see in person? Do you remember?
I went to the Utah State game. I forget what year it was, 2002 maybe. When I was in school, I went to school in Lincoln, and I helped make pizzas when I was in high school. So I saw my first couple games there as a worker, making pizzas, moving pizzas through the stands, that kind of thing. So I'd watched a bunch on TV, but man, when you get there in person and you see, the stands packed with red, there's no openings, you smell the runzas, you hear the roar of the crowd, you feel the breeze. Like it's a special thing. It's something that I think longtime fans can sometimes take for granted until you go around the country, and I think we've been reminded of that with Matt Rule and some of the other coaches that are here now, saying, man, Nebraska gets more for a spring game than other places get for a big, meaningful game in November. So that was kind of my first experience, and I think for people maybe that grew up following Nebraska football, it's just been part of their life. So I think that's the other cool thing about the streak is you can talk about the numbers and everything else, but just the way that it's touched people and affected their experiences with games is really something special.
Evan Bland with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Read Evan, omaha.com, at Evan Bland, OWH on Twitter. Evan, questions we were batting around a little bit earlier about Friday night, and what are a couple of questions you have about this matchup for Nebraska? What two things do you think will be a little bit more telling, more revealing about what this 2024 team is?
Well, they're playing up here, right? After the first 3 weeks, and Matt Rule kind of called it a preseason, and now they're into the season. So this is another Big Ten opponent that gets the same, $80 million TV paycheck that Nebraska gets. It's another opponent that recruits at a high level. I think what's interesting to me about this game is, and Matt Rule said it early in the week, he said Illinois is sort of like a mirror image of Nebraska in a lot of ways in terms of the physicality, how they want to play defense, the balance that they have offensively with some talented skill players. And so I think, to me, the thing that makes it interesting then is, okay, Nebraska doesn't have a clear advantage in certain areas the way that they did in the first 3 weeks. And so that magnifies a lot of the little stuff that we've been talking about that hasn't really had an effect on the outcome of the game. So, what does Nebraska look like on critical third downs offensively? What is Nebraska's tackling like when maybe you can't afford to give up an extra 5 or 10 yards after contact? What does the special team situation look like when you need a clutch field goal to take the lead or go up 2 scores or whatever? So, there are so many sort of narratives and streaks that Nebraska can turn on Friday night, starting with beating a top 25 opponent for the first time in 8 years. But I think one, to me, that stands out is this is a chance to maybe start believing that Nebraska can win a close game. If this thing is a one-possession game late, Nebraska didn't win any of those a year ago under Matt Rule. They either won by more than that or they lost those games. So I think that's still one identity piece of this team that they haven't had a chance to turn yet because they've won their first 3 games so decisively. What does that look like if you're in the fourth quarter and things are in doubt and you need to perform and execute in a key spot against a team that's just as talented as you? So I think that's something that'll definitely have my interest with 8 more Big Ten games after that.
Evan, to go from micro to macro here, a win on Friday would show you what Nebraska can be this year. If they get the victory, does that change your expectation for does that change at all your thoughts on how good this Husker team can be?
I don't know that it changes that much in the sense that, like, before the season, I think most people, and I would put myself in that camp, thought Nebraska would win this game against Illinois that had kind of a down year a year ago, and you know, it's in Lincoln and all the rest. So, like, I kind of thought they would win this game. I didn't anticipate Illinois would be a ranked opponent coming into Lincoln. Like, that's new. But, you know, I think the goal or sort of the path to bowl eligibility, the path to being in that upper class in the Big Ten still starts with beating teams that are on your level, you know, roughly speaking. So I don't know that I'm storming the field, you know, on Friday night if they beat a ranked team and end that streak. I think Nebraska is so laser focused on its own standard that a lot of those external things don't necessarily motivate it or matter to it all that much. It'd be a big deal, you know, to put that out there for the country on Friday night and in a game where both teams have a number next to their name. But I don't know that beating Illinois, even a top 25 Illinois team, necessarily changes that much for Nebraska. You know, that could come in future weeks, maybe with that Indiana game potentially. Certainly you're going to have those chances to open people's eyes with Ohio State and USC and Iowa and ending that streak against Wisconsin potentially. So I think those games are coming, but this would certainly be another example or another chance for Nebraska to do something that hasn't done in a long time, as it's you know, taking smaller steps from what Matt Rhule would describe as from winning football to championship football.
Evan, what's your concern for Nebraska on offense?
I mean, I don't have a ton of concerns right now. I think they're, you know, third down conversions, fourth downs. I mean, they didn't convert that fourth down situation against UNI last week, and I thought it was interesting that Matt Rhule, you know, kind of laid out that was a situation where he wanted to get those guys a chance to make a critical play in a critical spot to blow open a game. And even though it didn't work out in that moment, that's the sort of thing that can maybe pay dividends down the road in a third or fourth down spot. But, you know, I think the skill position situation is as healthy as it's been for Nebraska in a while. They're starting to define their running back rotation with Ramir Johnson and Dante Dowdell at the top, while Emmett Johnson has been sort of that closer late in the game. And then, you know, the offensive line's been strong. I thought Henry Latufsky filling in for Micah Mazuka last week was pretty seamless. And really, I mean, you talk about the difference between Nebraska and Illinois. I think, to me, the biggest one is the quarterback spot. And Dylan Raiola's ceiling compared to Luke Altmaier and Raiola's ability to throw that deep ball and to, you know, make up ground quickly. You know, a year ago, converting a 2nd and 30 seemed impossible, and they did it with ease in that opener. So I think it's looking pretty healthy for Nebraska. It's about continuing the trend of not giving the ball away. They've done a good job with that to this point. So limit your penalties a little bit more. Make sure that those chunk gains occasionally turn into, you know, explosive ones, maybe explosive scores. But other than that, I mean, they're healthy, knock on wood, and I think they're starting to find an identity on how they want to move the ball.
Evan, to me, you briefly hit on it, turnovers. That's the biggest way to me that this game could unravel for Nebraska on Friday night, is if they turn the football over. That's where Illinois' defense has been great. They're not going to put an offense in a stranglehold, but they are great at giving their offense the ball with a short field a chance to get some points. What is your concern level with the turnovers? Because it's been good through 3, but they haven't played a defense like Illinois yet.
Yeah, you know, it's another chance to prove that Nebraska is shaken loose from those turnover woes that have just plagued them for years and years. And yeah, I mean, Illinois is top 5 nationally in turnover margin right now, to your point. You know, that's been a reason that they've started off 3-0, and it can be, as we all know, a great equalizer in some of these games where you might have the better quarterback and you might have the better defense, but if you turn the ball over and you're not able to force takeaways on the other side, like that's when things can tighten up a little bit. And somehow, I mean, you think back to a year ago, Nebraska lost the turnover margin, I think, by 3, and they still win the game on the road 20-7. So I think that's a point of encouragement, really, for Nebraska's chances here on Friday. And if either defense is able to get the ball away from the opposing offense, I think that would change. There'd be a trend changer from what we've seen from those offenses so far. So it's kind of obvious to say, like, yeah, turnovers are going to affect the outcome of a game, but I think it's even more weighted this week when you talk about the fact that both of these teams are 3-0, largely because they've taken care of the football.
Evan, we'll wrap with this. I want to go back to what we started with, and that was initial memories of Nebraska football. Did you ever just, in a blowout, hunker down and just start hammering slices of pizza? Comment?
Well, when I was there in high school, I do like to tell this story. I helped distribute pizzas from concession stand to concession stand, but one of the perks of that job at the time, and maybe it's changed, but at the time, whatever pizza was left over was sort of used as currency on like the post-game trading market. And so like you could trade like a slice of pizza for a pink lemonade or for a runza or something. I mean, it was like an old barter system. And so you'd kind of seek out the folks who were running the other areas and try to, make everything work out for everybody. So that was one of my favorite parts about that.
So it's like smokes in prison, right? Well, I mean, they're as good as money.
In the student section, I once witnessed somebody trade a half-used gift card for a runza one time.
Okay, that's how many 10 seconds, how many Fairbury brand hot dogs was a slice of pizza worth?
I think 2 hot dogs for a slice of pizza would be about right.
I had to know that. Evan, we'll see you on Friday, bud. Thank you much.
Thanks, guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Dr. Brandon Seifert, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. A Jock Doc Wednesday. Well, I won't have you declare sell every Ram or trade every Ram if you have one on fantasy, Dr. Brandon, but the touchdown maker, Cooper Kupp, man, oh man, that was a nasty tackle he suffered against Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could tell with just kind of the way that foot got rolled up that he's going to have obviously some pretty big issues there. And you start thinking about what that injury entails and how is that going to kind of unfold as the season goes along, and definitely it's going to be one of those that's probably a bit of a struggle. I am surprised that they brought him back out to play in that same game despite kind of how nasty the injury looked.
Yeah, and it ended up 41-10. So that wasn't good, but we're talking about the left high ankle mechanism for Cooper Kupp. You have that defender rolling through the planted ankle. He limped off. Kind of reminds me of Sue trying to murder Blaine Gabbert against Missouri, where he had him posted and pivoted, and then it was going to snap him in half. This was at least during an active tackle, more so than a guy standing like a statue in the pocket. But let's talk short-term and long-term lingering here because, man, Dr. Brandon, this is one of those that I think you can tweak even if it's feeling good 2 seconds earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of read through the lines here and kind of what information they're putting out about his injury, it's one of those things we've discussed before, the dreaded high ankle sprain during the season. And it's important to have that kind of distinction between high ankle sprain, kind of normal ankle sprain, and what's the difference between those two. So to delineate those two, you really have to look at kind of anatomically what we're talking about. So when it comes to a high ankle sprain, now you're talking more dealing with the ligamentous structures on the inside part of the ankle. So if you feel down along the inside out part of your ankle, it's a little ball portion that's called the medial malleolus. Below that is a really thick ligamentous structure called the deltoid ligament. But even moving further up from there, between the shin bone, which is the tibia, and then the smaller bone, the fibula on the outside, there's a really strong, thick ligament that basically attaches those two together, kind of running up a good portion of the distance of the leg. That's called your syndesmosis ligament. And when you start talking about high ankle sprains, that's when you start to have an injury where you start to get into that big ligamentous structure, which typically is not involved if you have like kind of your normal ankle sprain, if you will, that's just kind of off to the side. And so in order to get to that level, you tend to have that rotation come all the way around to the inside of the ankle and transition up into that big ligamentous structure. And so there's just a lot higher level injury that makes that happen. It's a different kind of pattern in terms of how that ankle rolls or moves for that to occur. And then obviously the biggest thing is your recovery time that is much, much different from that versus your standard kind of ankle sprain.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us here, a Jock Doc Wednesday on Hail Varsity Radio. And Dr. Brandon, one of the things we did learn today, is you kind of laid it out, not too much information, but we did learn Cooper Kupp is not going to be going to injured reserve, which would indicate that the Rams think maybe he can be back within a month. What does that tell you about the severity of this, in particular, high ankle sprain?
Yeah, obviously that prognosis is good as they if you look at it from that perspective and not going on the injured reserve list, maybe back within a month at kind of max there, then I think that's a good prognosis for him that this is probably fairly low grade. But even still, anytime you're concerned about that high ankle sprain, even if it's low grade, there's always that potential for one, just a little longer to get back, much easier to kind of retweak it. So that always is kind of there. But again, with that kind of shortened timetable for him, I do think his prognosis is pretty good at this point.
Dr. Brandon, it tells me that Cooper Kupp's a cyborg. I mean, when that tackle's 10 times worse looking than apparently the IR requirement, where 2 Rams did go on the IR today, but not him.
I think that tackle would probably snap my ankle in half.
Right. I would have matching twins if it happened to me. But so I'm interested here with some of the treatment here. Is it something that you go PRP with? Is it kind of electroid? I mean, how do you guys treat it? Yes, rest. Yes, elevation. I get it. But what else? What's a little bit more exotic that can be done training-wise?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. There's definitely a lot of kind of new studies going on about some of these high-level sports med injuries that maybe start using some injectable, what we call biologics, to maybe speed, the health or the improvement of these athletes. So PRP is one of those that's out there. PRP, stem cells, another one. And so there's a lot of kind of ongoing studies right now looking at some of these, I should say, kind of lower grade injuries, whether it be hamstring strain, high ankle sprain. Does PRP, that's where we take your blood out, spin it down, and grab those kind of platelet-derived growth factors, all those fancy growth factors that are in there, and inject those into injury sites. And so with the ankles, there's not a ton of data on that just yet, but I think it'd be, potentially a reasonable option. I think the biggest thing for athletes, though, getting back with some of those injuries, especially like high ankle sprains, it really boils down to, one, are you managing your swelling well? 2, how's your strength and kind of your confidence in how that, that joint feels? Do you feel like you can cut like you need to? Do you feel like you can get out of the way to defend yourself when you're about to get tackled? All those kind of things are really important, despite the fact of, what kind of substances we're injecting. But I do think the PRPs of the world are probably going to prove to be, pretty reasonable, pretty helpful. It's just kind of the data's a bit mixed on that at this point.
It's Dr. Brandon Seifert with us here. And Dr. Brandon, with the injury concerns that the Rams have in their wide receiver room as a whole, Puka Nacua, he's on injured reserve. Now Cooper Kupp is set to miss an extended period of time. From a return-to-play point of view, is there anything that can be done for pain management to get Cooper Kupp out there ahead of schedule, or is this something that you're going to have to baby along, if you will, because the risk of injury is too high?
Yeah, so with these, you do have to be a bit careful just because the ability to retweak these is pretty easy. So you got to be really careful. You really want to make sure they're feeling well, their confidence is there. Obviously, you want to make sure that just symptomatically they're not having the sharp pain, and that confidence piece really looks pretty good. So you do want to be a bit careful with these. If it's kind of your run-of-the-mill, what we call lateral ankle sprains are more kind of your basic ones, then you can be a little bit more aggressive about getting those back. Sure, there's kind of that retweak factor there, but it's just not to the same level as to what we see with these higher ankle sprains.
Dr. Brandon, the old pirate Mike Leach, our dear friend, departed friend, always put sand pits as part of the training facility, and guys would work out in sand pits to strengthen their ankles. Is there some preventative, as we wrap up, training or exercises that guys can do to maybe make their ankles a little bit more iron tough?
Yeah, I think what's beneficial for these, and once you kind of get up to that kind of NFL, really elite level like that, they do a great job of this. But where I see it more in our younger athletes is they don't ever get to that kind of final phase of rehab. So they'll start maybe an early therapy program, whether with the physical therapist or on their own with their athletic trainer. And they never quite get to that final phase, which is what we call the balance phase, the biomechanics stage. Those things are really important to get to that last level because that really helps you kind of regain that proprioception, that final strength. And once you get to that point, then you're really ready to get out there and you've done the best you can to basically prevent or help prevent another injury. If you try to go back and have not kind of completed that, we just see that kind of re-injury risk go way up.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday, Cooper Kupp. Dr. Brandon, have yourself a good weekend, and we'll holler next week.
All right, fellas. Take care.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice in studio as well today. And big thanks to Tim Brando, Mike Babcock, Evan Bland, and Dr. Brandon. Let's hear a little bit from Matt Rule. And again, Evan asked him about the fan traits for the Big Red as everyone's celebrating 400 Friday night.
I think loyalty. I think just passion and loyalty. I think the loyalty is not just the sellouts. It's coming that early and staying late. And as I had one fan say to me at one of the events, he said, we come to support all the players. We come to support all the kids. And so we want to watch the guys warm up. And if, when we're ahead against UNI, we're going to stay to the end and watch all the guys play. And, that's really probably with UTEP. I remember coming out in the second half and, the game's probably pretty clearly in hand. I look up and I'm like, man, look at this crowd still here. It's just, it's unreal. And so that loyalty, that passion, as I've said since day one, is something that, we feel humbled by, and we have to make sure we do our job. So I feel it all the time. I feel like it's tremendous, not a burden in a bad way, but a sense of responsibility to make sure that we're doing our part. And, one of the things I'm proud of about our staff is, if you ever listen to Coach Osborne when he talks about our staff, and he'll say it sometimes in terms of me, but he always says we work hard. And that's all I want. I'm not a guru. I'm not smarter than everybody else. Our coaches aren't maybe smarter than everybody else. Maybe there's some smarter people out there saying that they should do this, they should do that. But we work hard. We work hard at recruiting. We work hard at football. We work hard at relationships. We work hard at being part of the campus and the part of the university setting, right? We work hard to be a part of the athletic department. And I think if you can teach young people to work hard, you have a chance. And so that's what our fans are. People in Nebraska work hard. And so we've just tried to come here and have our work ethic match the work ethic of the state. And if you go back to, there was a time this year, a pivotal time when maybe people were a little bit unease, and I put out a video of, Paul Harvey doing The Farmer. That was the video, honestly, that called to me to come here. Like, I just kept listening to that over. And as I walked around the field last week before the game, I listened to that one more time because we do what we do. I do it for the players first, but I do it for the fans and people second. I want them to be proud of what they see. We might not win every game, but we can certainly play in a way that respects and honors the work ethic of the people that came before us and the people that are in the stadium.
It's Matt Rule, and just nailing it in front of the mic, and chance to move to 4-0 and beat a ranked squad. Reminder to get buckled up is use your seatbelt. It saves lives, prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Single barrel tomorrow. Roadshow Thursday to get your football weekend kicked off, 4 to 6. Come see us, 9th and P. Inside the Graduate Friday, pregame in front of Nebraska-Illinois, 4 to 6, the Graduate. And, of course, the Single Barrel, where we'll be posted up for pregame and then Real Red Reaction following on all the socials and radio here locally in Lincoln. So that's big. Excited, man. Single Barrel road shows. I can take Elijah with me on one of them, which is good. What was the...
hopefully more here soon with Justice.
Yeah, Justice is... he hasn't ran yet.
Yeah, Justice, hop in here. Why haven't you ran yet?
Yeah, he's big enough to throw both of us out of the way. The son of Ireland, I believe he was dubbed by...
Are you Irish?
Somebody in the stream. I don't know. Justice, can you say hello?
Yeah, great to be on board. First time really shadowing. Excited to start really producing and getting my feet wet so that Elijah can go out on more of these exciting road trips.
Justice, check is in the mail, my friend, says Elijah.
He almost says long-time listener, first-time producer.
Yeah, he can keep talking sweet. See you at the Single Barrel tomorrow, 4 o'clock, 9th and P with Hail Varsity.